In this video, we are going to review how to create an Excel formula to unstack data. Power Query is a great tool for unstacking data, but sometimes we would prefer to use a formula approach for reasons such as the preference to not work with tables or Power Query, or if we want to see real-time updates that would not require refreshing the query to see a change. Also, Power Query is not currently compatible with Excel Online, where the formula approach would be, and it makes shared workbooks more user-friendly, and it's easier to make updates. This process will be performed by following these 12 steps. Step 1 is to input the data with both column and row names. In this particular example, this data represents a measurement study where 3 different people A, B, and C, measured 10 different parts. Step 2 is to create a named range, for example, RNG. This step is optional, but it does make creating formulas and working with data easier as we go forward. And note that this named range should only be for the data and to not include the header or row names. This is done by selecting the data, going to the name box, typing in the name RNG, and hitting enter. Step 3 is to use the TOCOL function to unstack the data. This function allows us to select the entire array of data and put it into one column. If you would like to study the syntax of this function, feel free to pause the video before moving forward. This array has 90 data points and gets spilled down the column. Step 4 is to put range equals range inside of a if function. This will return an array of truths with the same dimensions as the range. And with the if function, we can replace those truths with the header names. To unstack the header names like we did for the data, we can wrap the TOCOL function around our if formula. Next, we will repeat the same last 2 steps, but this time for the row names. In order to only have to reference one range in our final formula, we next need to replace the header and row name ranges with the range reference and using the offset function. Here, -1 means we are going up 1 row from the referenced range. And then 1 means we only want 1 row worth of data. This is repeated again for the row names, where the -1 means to go left 1 column, and then the 1 means to only return 1 column worth of data. Step 8 is optional, but it's to use the VSTACK function to add headers to our formula to replace having to type it in manually. Step 9 will use both the LAMBDA function and the HSTACK function. The LAMBDA function is a function that can be placed into the name manager to create a new custom function. We will place 1, 2, 3 inside of the HSTACK function as placeholders, where we will copy and paste those out later. In order to test the custom LAMBDA function outside of the name manager, we have to include a value for the variable in parentheses. We will now copy and paste the previous formulas and paste over 1, 2, and 3 to make the more complex formula. This will allow us to test it before it's placed into the name manager to make sure that it works properly. Now that we have confirmed that our custom LAMBDA function is working properly, it's time to modify it so it's compatible with the name manager. This means we remove the final RNG in parentheses at the end and replace all of the RNGs with the parameter R. Note that I could have selected any other variable, but I picked R since it can represent the word range. Please note that it is very difficult to modify formulas inside of the name manager. So it is highly recommended to make any modifications to a name manager formula inside the Excel formula editor or in a text editing software like Notepad. We now have our final formula that can be copied and pasted into the name manager. I will also put a copy of this in the comments so you can copy and paste it and use it for your own application.